The top stories tonight in Y News. General community quarantine status extended in Metro Manila and 6 other areas for the entire month of November. But local government units may appeal for their quarantine classifications until tomorrow.
The Department of Health supports the appointment of a COVID-19 vaccine Cesar. The DOH says that this vaccine Cesar has to prioritize the even distribution of vaccines to the millions of Filipinos.
The management of One Stop Shop clarifies it is not forcing overseas Filipino workers to avail of swab testing in private laboratories at Manila Aquino International Airport. Meanwhile, Philippine Red Cross Chairman Senator Richard Gordon urges the government to investigate the allegedly costly swab test in NAIA.
PhilHealth pays 500 million pesos as partial payment to the Philippine Red Cross.
Protests spark across Italy over new anti-COVID-19 measures.
Justice Amy Barrett confirmed by the Senate to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, October 27, 2020. I'm Angelo Castro III. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world.
We are also seen in 935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I'm Stephanie C.
First in the news, general community quarantine status has been extended in Metro Manila and 6 other areas in the country for the entire month of November. But local government units have until tomorrow to appeal on their community quarantine status. Here's why from our palace correspondent, Rosalie Cor.
President Rodrigo Duterte has announced that the government will place Metro Manila under general community quarantine for another 1 month. In addition to this, the Interagency Task Force has recommended a GCQ status for Batangas, Iloilo City, Bacolod City, Tacloban City, Iligan City, and Lanao del Sur from November 1 to 30, 2020. However, the local government units still have until tomorrow, October 28, to appeal to the IATF on their quarantine classifications. According to Presidential Spokesperson Harry Roque, on October 29, Malacanang will make a final quarantine classification announcement for the entire country for the month of November. Meanwhile, the chief executive reiterates that he wants to secure COVID-19 vaccines through government-to-government transactions. He said this move is to prevent corruption. He will also not beg for the vaccine but buy the potential vaccine developed by a country.
Hindi kami maghingi. We will pay. So, maganda sana government to government ang transaction. Walang corruption, wala lahat kasi government to government. We had a meeting with Ambassador Huang. Said that the vaccine is there. It will be in a matter of distribute. And of course, what kind of transaction would it be for them and for us?
The chief executive says he prefers to buy a vaccine against COVID-19 from China. 1 to 2 Chinese vaccines are already in advanced stages of clinical trials. Reports say mass production and distribution may take place before 2020 ends. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Health supports the approval and appointment of a COVID-19 vaccine Cesar. The DOH says that this vaccine Cesar has to prioritize the even distribution of vaccines to the Filipino population. Our health correspondent Aiko Miguel details why.
The Duterte administration has appointed testing, isolation, contact tracing, and treatment czars to spearhead the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Yesterday, Malacanang announced that President Duterte has chosen a vaccine czar in response to the proposal of Senate President pro tempore Ralph Recto. But the palace said this still has to be validated by the chief executive. According to the Department of Health, they support the appointment of a vaccine czar, although the immunization program of the DOH has long been established and implemented.
So if we are going to have a vaccine czar, of course, the Department of Health would very much welcome that. But if that plan or proposal would not push through, ano ang ginagawa natin dito sa DOH? We have long been implementing immunization program, no? So dati pa ho, mula nung nag-umpisa ang department, isa na yan sa talagang finest strategies ng Department of Health, yun pong pagbabakuna.
According to the DOH, once the vaccine czar is confirmed, the official will have to focus on the discovery of a potential COVID-19 vaccine through its distribution once approved. The vaccine czar also has to prioritize the even distribution of vaccines to 110 million Filipinos.
When we say that there is going to be a vaccine czar, kung ito ay magiging importante, nakita po natin kung paano natin mas napabilis at na-facilitate ang mga ginagawa because there was this specific person overseeing and providing this guidance, no, para po dito sa mga strategies na meron tayo when it comes to existing czars that we have.
Currently, the Department of Science and Technology, the Vaccine Experts Panel, and the Food and Drug Administration are the agencies that lead the approval process and regulation of potential COVID-19 vaccines. The DOH and other agencies are preparing the vaccine cold chain too. As of now, Sinovac, the China-based biopharmaceutical company that produces CoronaVac, a potential anti-COVID-19 vaccine, is the only manufacturer which has submitted its application to conduct an independent clinical trial in the Philippines. The FDA says that Sinovac's clinical trial is expected to start by November this year. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
For the UP Octa research team, observing the minimum health standards, increasing the testing capacity, and improving the health system remain vital amid the current COVID-19 situation in the country. Joan Nano tells us why.
A recent study by University of the Philippines Octa Research shows a slight increase in the number of new COVID-19 cases attributed to the increased capacity of public transportation. Now, UP Octa is projecting a further rise in COVID-19 cases in Metro Manila in the next 2 weeks as the government continues to relax community quarantine restrictions in order to revive the economy. The UP Octa research team says it has yet to quantify the possible increase in COVID-19 cases because the increase may also not happen if minimum health standards are strictly observed.
Nung time na nag-reduce na ng physical distancing, ginawa yata for 2 or 3 days, may nakita na siyang spike sa mobility and may corresponding spike sa cases na maliit lang naman, slight uptick. That's why they feel there's a significant chance na magkakaroon ng uptick in the next coming weeks. Pero hindi naman yan guarantee, so hopefully hindi matuloy yan.
The research group also identifies 18 localities considered as high-risk areas based on their new findings. Those high-risk areas include Pasay, Makati, Pasig, and Mandaluyong cities in Metro Manila, Baguio City, Itogon Benguet, Calamba Laguna, Angono, Cainta, and Taytay Rizal, as well as Ilagan Isabela, Batangas, and General Trias Cavite are also considered as high-risk areas. Even Iloilo City, San Carlos in Negros Occidental, as well as Davao City and Butuan City in Agusan del Norte in Mindanao fall under the same category. Although the local government has the responsibility and discretion to manage COVID-19 cases in their jurisdictions, UP Octa still advises to further strengthen their healthcare system and testing capacity in order to prevent further transmission of the virus.
Obviously, kailangan mapababa nila yung caseload nila para magkaroon ng relief sa hospitals nila. Hindi naman namin necessarily recommend yung lockdown, localized lockdown, pero nasa discretion yan ng local government unit. And then, of course, yung testing, kailangan nilang, syempre, i-scale up pa, especially sa south of Mindanao. Nakita namin maraming areas din na ang taas ng positivity rate, meaning kulang yung testing nila.
Johanaro, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Davao City has continued to record a high number of single-day cases these past few weeks. According to the DOH, the COVID-19 growth rate in the city has gone up to 60.10% in the past 2 weeks from just 43.6% in the previous weeks. The city government attributes this spike in number to gatherings in non-essential activities of residents. These include religious gatherings, rallies, sports, and parties, among others. According to Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio, cases have tripled in several barangays, among which Barangay Buhangin tops. The city now has about 1,400 contact tracers who need further capability enhancement. Davao City officials also look forward to the QR code system next month for a more efficient contact tracing. The local government reminds Davao City residents to stay at home if there are no essential activities, to do outdoors, store food that will last for days, as well as medicines and other essential needs, to avoid physical contact with other people and prevent the further spread of the virus.
Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health says that 1,524 new cases were reported today, raising the total confirmed cases of coronavirus infections in the Philippines to 373,144. That's the 20th largest case load among countries hit by the pandemic. Negros Occidental recorded the most number of new cases today with 115, while Cavite, Benguet, Quezon City, and Laguna reported less than 100 additional cases each. The total active cases in the country rose from yesterday to 37,489. Of that number, 82.8% are in mild condition, while 11% are asymptomatic. We have lost 14 more patients, but through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 323 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 328,602. That's 88.1% of the country's total confirmed COVID cases. And that's the 14th highest number of recoveries worldwide. Thanks be to God.
Let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of more than 43.5 million confirmed cases in 189 countries, regions, and sovereignty. That's after over 177,000 new cases of COVID-19 were reported across various nations in the past 24 hours. The fast-spreading disease has claimed over 1.1 million lives as of today, including more than 3,000 new deaths across the globe caused by the virus, while more than 29.2 million patients across the globe have recovered from the new coronavirus infection. Thanks be to God.
The management of One Stop Shop clarifies it is not forcing overseas Filipino workers to avail swab testing in private laboratories at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. Joan Nano details why.
One Stop Shop strongly denies reports circulating on social media that OFWs arriving in NAIA are told to use the services of private RT-PCR test providers at the airport. Those reports say that the OFWs pay high for swab tests. One Stop Shop also clarifies that the government shoulders the COVID-19 testing for OFWs, so they don't need to spend any amount to undergo testing. However, for non-OFWs, there are currently 2 private laboratories operating in NAIA. One is the Toxicare, the partner laboratory of Philippine Airlines, and the other is the Philippine Airport Ground Support Solutions Incorporated, the partner laboratory of PH Airport Diagnostic Lab. These companies have an agreement with a task group on management of returning OFWs in which swab tests will cost 4,000 pesos each. However, there are some extreme cases wherein OFWs request to be tested by a private laboratory in order to receive faster result and clearance. In such cases, OFWs are asked to pay an additional fee and they must get a clearance from the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA. Meanwhile, Philippine Red Cross Chairman and CEO Senator Richard Gordon urges the government to investigate the alleged overpriced COVID-19 swab testing in NAIA.
So nakikita nyo ang inconvenience na ginagawa nitong racket na ito. Nahuli sa aeroplano, hindi makauwi kagad, naghihintay sa hotel, gastos, tapos meron silang ladderized type of charging. You're taking advantage of the misery of other people.
On the other hand, Malacanang says that they are in talks with other laboratories who offer cheaper RT-PCR testing, which are more preferable to render services in airports and seaports instead of private COVID-19 testing providers.
Kakausapin po namin ngayon yung mga mas mababang sinisingil, yung NKTI, Philippine Children's Hospital, Lung Center at Perpetual Health. Baka dapat sila yung unang manguna sa airport at sa pantalan na mas mababa pa nga ang pwedeng bayaran ng ating mga kababayan. 1,750 hanggang 2,000 lang po ang sinisingil ng mga testing labs na ito.
Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
President Rodrigo Duterte directs the Department of Justice to investigate corruption in the entire government. Meanwhile, the mega task force to be headed by the DOJ will focus on the irregularities in the Department of Public Works and Highways. Rosalie Cos explains why.
As part of his commitment to spend the remaining 2 years of his term resolving corruption in the government, President Rodrigo Duterte directed Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara to expand the DOJ task force to conduct government-wide investigations against irregularities. The president made the announcement during his state public address this morning after admitting that corruption in government seemed to worsen.
The DOJ is hereby directed to investigate allegations of corruption in the entire government. Lahat na.
The palace defended the recent action of the president and said that the Office of the Ombudsman has limited manpower to investigate on corrupt government officials and personnel. Malacanang dubbed the panel to be created by the DOJ as mega task force.
Mas marami tayong piskal na po pwede mag-imbestiga at aasistihan po ng ang ating mga piskal ng kapulisan at ng NBI at ng yung ating opisina laban sa red tape, yung ating PA, yung Presidential Anti-Graft Commission. So marami pong aasiste at marami pong mga piskal na po pwede mag-conduct ng investigation kung ikukumpira po natin sa limitadong personnel ng Office of the Ombudsman.
The DOJ has the authority to determine what allegations of corruption it would investigate. Meanwhile, one of the focuses of the mega task force is the corruption allegations in the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH. But President Duterte said he has no doubts on the integrity of Public Works and Highways Secretary Mark Villar.
This time, we will look into every department. But upon my request, BS, to focus sa corruption sa DPWH. Let me state here and now that I have nothing against Secretary Villar. He's one of the hard-working at maraming accomplishments si Secretary Villar.
Regarding PhilHealth corruption issues, the chief executive said while a lot of personnel and officials of the state health insurer who had stepped down, they will not escape from the criminal and administrative liability. The president also said that he will not abolish PhilHealth because he said it is not easy to create a new one. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The House of Representatives has finally transmitted the soft copy of its final version of the 2021 proposed national budget earlier than expected. October 28 was the supposed deadline or the date agreed upon by both houses of Congress for the transmission of the lower house version of the 4.5 trillion peso proposed 2021 national budget to the Senate. But with the final House version signed by Speaker Lord Alan Velasco at 3:40 this afternoon, the House of Representatives was able to transmit the soft copy of the 2021 General Appropriations Bill to the Senate a day earlier. According to Speaker Velasco, the final version includes additional allocation for COVID-19 vaccines and facilities enhancement program of the Department of Health. Also included are the additional funds to help displaced workers and assistance to families affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. These additions to the budget are part of the 20 billion pesos institutional amendments and departmental errata that was approved by the small committee formed by the lower house of Congress. Velasco says the budget was made to strengthen the government's COVID-19 response and stimulate economic recovery. Meanwhile, according to the Office of Senator Sonny Angara, the General Appropriations Bill, or GAB, has been turned over to the Legislative Budget Research and Monitoring Office of the Senate. Also, according to the Office of Senator Angara, upon the resumption of session on November 9, the GAB will have to be referred to the Committee on Finance on that day, November 9. Senator Angara targets to sponsor the bill on the floor of the Senate on November 10. Meanwhile, the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, or PhilHealth, announced it has released 500 million pesos as partial payment to the Philippine Red Cross. In a statement, PhilHealth said it will expedite the processing of the remaining balance following strict compliance to government accounting rules and regulations. The Philippine Red Cross has yet to verify if they have received the payment. PhilHealth President and CEO Dante Gueran said PhilHealth takes exemption to the insinuation that it is reckless and is playing on people's lives. This comes after PRC Chairman and CEO Senator Richard Gordon said in a virtual interview today that the state health insurer agency is reckless and irresponsible after it failed to pay its 1.1 billion peso debt. The state health insurer also assures that it will expedite the processing of payments to the accredited laboratories conducting the current swab testing to overseas Filipino workers. Earlier, Senator Gordon also lamented the non-payment of PhilHealth, which delayed the chartered flight to China to purchase 450,000 test kits worth $6 to $8 million.
Pag-asa forecasts that 4 to 6 typhoons may enter the Philippines before this year ends. Records show that these are weather disturbances we must brace ourselves for. Monokson tells us why.
Did you know that more or less 20 typhoons hit the Philippines every year? According to the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAGASA, this is normal due to our geographical location. So far, typhoons Ambo, Buchoy, Karina, Dindo, Enteng, Ferdi, Hener, Helen, Igme, Julian, Christine, Leon, Marce, Nika, Ophel, and Pepito have entered the Philippine Area of Responsibility before Quinta. Pag-asa forecast that before the year ends, the Philippines may experience 4 to 6 more typhoons. That is why, aside from the pandemic, we must still prepare for the upcoming catastrophes. After Typhoon Quinta battered southern Luzon, Pag-asa is monitoring a new low-pressure area outside the Philippine Area of Responsibility. The question of many is the LPA as powerful as Typhoon Quinta? And where will it hit? Well, according to the Weather Bureau, it is too early to tell because they are still observing the LPA. but records show that strong typhoons hit the Philippines during the end of the year. Some examples of this are Typhoon Uring, which hit November 1991, wherein more than 5,000 died. Typhoon Winnie, which hit in November 2004. Fatalities reached more than 1,500. Typhoon Reming, which hit the Philippines November 2006. The final count of fatalities is unknown because there were areas in Albay buried in lahar. Typhoon Pablo, November 2012, more than 2,000 people died. And Typhoon Yolanda, which hit November 2013, more than 6,000 people lost their lives. Strong typhoons are scary, but if we have enough time to prepare for these disasters, casualties may be avoided. Mon Hokson, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council recorded 3 deaths and 13 missing individuals as Typhoon Quinta hit the country. The agency also prepares to alert concerned local government units for another possible hazard in the coming days. Asher Kadapan Jr. will tell us why.
The National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council, or NDRRMC, confirms that there were 3 individuals who died due to the onslaught of Typhoon Quinta in the country. The deaths were all due to drowning. 2 separate incidents happened in Negros Oriental and 1 was a case in Marinduque. The number of missing individuals has been updated to 13 persons as the Regional Disaster Councils confirm such incident in other regions. In Catanduanes, of the 12 fishermen who were reported missing yesterday, 4 have already been rescued. 2 more fishermen from Camarines Sur and Iloilo have gone missing when the typhoon struck. Authorities are also looking for a crew member of a sunken yacht in Bawan, Batangas, and 2 other individuals who were swept by a strong river current in Odiongan, Romblon, and Negros Oriental. Based on the NDRRMC's report, the number of people affected by Typhoon Quinta across the country has gone up to almost 1 million. Over 70,000 of them are taking temporary shelter at evacuation centers in different regions, including the National Capital Region, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, Regions 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and Cordillera Administrative Region. The NDRRMC, however, keeps a hold of its 890 million pesos worth of food packs and standby funds to aid individuals affected by the typhoon as it awaits the go-ahead signal of concerned local government units.
Until such time kasi na mag-request ng mag-inform ang LGU sa Regional Disaster Council at saka sa NDRRMC that they require augmentation support for their release items, etc. Doon kami nagpapalabas ng mga items na ito to support their local supply.
The NDRRMC is still identifying the estimated cost of damages brought about by Typhoon Quinta. Meanwhile, the agency is also monitoring the low-pressure area that may develop into a typhoon and hit the country in the next few days.
Pagpasok sa Philippine Area of Responsibility, magsasagawa ulit tayo dito sa NDRRMC ng pre-disaster risk assessment para in coordination with our relevant agencies ay matutukoy po natin yung possible effects and impact of this hazard.
Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Now, here's a glimpse of what's the weather like in parts of the country. Typhoon Quinta exited the Philippine area of responsibility this morning. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says as of 4 p.m. today, the eye of Quinta was located at 310 kilometers north-northwest of Kalayaan Islands, Palawan. It has maximum sustained winds of 155 kilometers per hour near the center, with gustiness of up to 190 kilometers per hour. Quinta will move generally west-northwestward or westward towards the central portion of Vietnam. As of 5 p.m., Kalayaan Islands remains under tropical cyclone wind signal number 1. Today through tomorrow morning, light to moderate with at times heavy rains will be felt over western Visayas, Zamboanga Peninsula, Batanes, Cagayan, Mindoro provinces, Romblon, Palawan including Calamian and Cuyo Islands, Basilan, Sulu and Tawi-Tawi. Possible flash floods or landslides may occur during heavy and prolonged rainfall. Meanwhile, Pag-asa is monitoring a new low-pressure area outside PAR. As of 4 p.m. today, the LPA was located at 2,125 kilometers east of Central Luzon with maximum sustained winds of 45 kilometers per hour near the center with gustiness of up to 55 kilometers per hour. This may enter PAR tomorrow or Thursday morning.
AFP Chief of Staff General Gilbert Gapay had a dialogue at Camp Aguinaldo with Muslim leaders based in Metro Manila. Meanwhile, the Muslim leaders pointed out that the lack of understanding, lack of communication, and lack of collaboration in the community must be resolved. Leah Ilagan reports why.
Muftis, imams, and madrasa are present at a dialogue with Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief of Staff General Gilbert Gapay, which aims to have a good cooperation on fighting terrorism and other criminal activities.
Alam po naman natin na yung common aspirations natin for the good of everyone, for peace, development, security, and stability of our country is our primordial concern.
The AFP also wants to protect colleges and universities to prevent the youth from being the targets of terrorist groups' recruitment.
It is our common aspiration to protect and shield educational institutions, to include the madrasas and madaris, from unscrupulous sectors of society. Kaya ito po yung isang common aspiration and effort natin to really move to that direction.
The Muslim leaders, for their part, gave their commitment to help and explain to the community the good intention of the government.
Kasi ngayon yan ang problema, the people of community is lack of understanding, lack of communication, at lack of collaboration. Kaya kailangan talaga ay magkaroon ng consultation sa mamamayan, dahil hindi alam ng mga mamamayan kung ano ang nasa itaas, ano ang programa sa itaas.
Some of the programs for the youth are the National Youth Leadership Summit and the National Indigenous Peoples Leaders Summit to protect the youth against radicalization and extremist recruitment. Leah Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Bureau of Immigration orders more than 2,700 erring Chinese nationals to leave the country. Immigration Commissioner Jaime Morente says that more than half of that number have been blacklisted from entering the Philippines again. Those Chinese violated the visas upon arrival conditions by overstaying beyond the 30-day allowable period, according to the Bureau. Visas upon arrival, or VUA, is a subject by the Tourism Department to attract Chinese tourists and tour groups by allowing them to travel to the Philippines and stay for not more than 30 days without the need to apply visas at Philippine consulates in their places of origin.
And for the news abroad, here's Kath Dumaraos reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand. Go ahead, Kath.
Good evening, Diego. Thailand's Election Commission has announced that the local elections will be held in 60 days for presidents of the Provincial Administrative Organization, or PAO, and members of PAO councils. An announcement reportedly signed by Election Commission Secretary General Police Colonel Jarungwit Puma had been sent to provincial election directors to proceed with the election plan. The announcement has removed all incumbent PAO council members and presidents from their positions before the election. Provinces will be accepting registrations from PAO candidates from November 2 to 6, with the election date set for December 20th. Let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases in countries worst hit by the pandemic. Cases in the USA continue to increase, now at more than 8.7 million, 10 months from when the virus first spread in nations. It still has the highest number of COVID-related deaths, now over 225,000. India nears 8 million cases as of today, but it has the highest number of recoveries, now at 7.2 million. Now, after countries in Europe have suppressed the virus transmission, many of them are now experiencing resurgence of infections. France, in fact, is now up in this tally again, now country number 5 with over 1.2 million cumulative cases. The World Health Organization continues to remind governments, both with high cases and low cases, to continue their measures which have been effective in stemming the spread of the disease, and that no country is already out of the woods. Remember to wear your mask properly, keep a safe distance away from other people, and regularly wash or sanitize your hands. Ingat kasang bahay. Elsewhere in Italy, violent protests broke on Monday over new restrictions to curb the country's second wave of coronavirus infections. Clashes with police were reported in several major cities, including Turin, Milan, and Naples. In Milan, crowds chanted "Libertà" or "Freedom." The protest began soon after the national government's order to close restaurants, bars, gyms, and cinemas came into effect at 1800 local time. Many regions have also imposed nighttime curfews, including Lombardy, where Milan is, and Piedmont, where Turin is. Protests took place in about a dozen other cities, including Rome, Genoa, Palermo, and Trieste. Earlier lockdowns this year were complied with peacefully, but the announcement of renewed measures has been met with immediate oppositions. Small businesses argue that they are still recovering from that first lockdown and that more restrictions could bring them more losses or even bankruptcy. Some luxury stores in central Turin, including a Gucci boutique, were ransacked by crowds. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern mentioned her big plans for New Zealand and used social media to update Kiwis on her party's parliament gathering. Joining us tonight is one of our correspondents in New Zealand, Iya De Vera, to tell us why live. Iya?
Kath, after the big win in New Zealand's general election 2020, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is back in the beehive to continue her work and plans for the country. The Prime Minister plans on resuming government talks with the Green Party after the long weekend about the potential cooperation with the Labour. Ardern said she wants to speed up works on existing plans such as the infrastructure investment, the infrastructure program across the schools and health, the Provincial Growth Fund rollout, and the Jobs for Nature. Moreover, Ardern wants to prioritize works before December holidays. One of those is the amendment of COVID-19 loan assistance measures for small businesses. The scheme is due to expire this year, but the Labour Party promised to extend the loan assistance for another 3 years. During the election campaign, Labour Party's flagship policy was the child poverty reduction. While focusing on existing plans, Jacinda Ardern said that she wanted to keep this portfolio and she is dedicated on getting better results and data. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister and Labour Party's members of the Parliament had their first caucus meeting last week at the Old Public Trust Building in Wellington, New Zealand. The said party has the majority in the Parliament House with 49.1% of votes, or 64 out of 120 seats. Ardern shared on social media what it feels like to have a big caucus for the first time. Let us listen to what the Prime Minister said.
Monday checked in with them. We had a great caucus dinner on Monday night. I have to admit, I walked in and felt like it was the size of a large wedding party because it is a very big group of people, which is amazing. Tuesday, we had our first caucus meeting. Traditionally, the government caucus always meets in the same room, on the same floor of Parliament House, always have done. This is the first time I've been in that room when it's been so crowded, though.
Kath?
Iya, what is the business cash flow loan that you mentioned earlier, and who are the main beneficiaries of this scheme?
Kath, the Small Business Cash Flow Loan Scheme is a low-interest one-off loan that small businesses can avail if their businesses are struggling due to COVID-19 pandemic. Businesses up to 50 employees, sole traders, and self-employed are eligible to apply for this scheme. The application is open to any registered small businesses in the country. Currently, the deadline of loan application is on the 31st of December, and the applications can be made and submitted on the Inland Revenue website. Kath?
Thank you, Iya, for that report live from New Zealand. U.S. President Donald Trump touted the confirmation of his third Supreme Court nominee today. Sonny Cos from California, USA, tells us why.
U.S. President Donald Trump celebrated a major victory today, just 8 days before Election Day, when the U.S. Senate confirmed his third Supreme Court nominee, Justice Amy Coney Barrett. In a 52-48 vote, the Republican-controlled Senate confirmed Barrett to the lifetime appointment, providing a 6-3 conservative majority on the High Court, replacing liberal Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died last month. The confirmation brings a boost to the lagging campaign of the president, trailing Democratic nominee Joe Biden. Trump touted the victory at campaign rallies to the cheers of his supporters. Barrett, who was the only justice confirmed so close to a presidential election, said that the oath she has taken compels her to do her job without fear or favor and to do it independently of any political branches. Sonny Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, USA. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to appoint a new Supreme Court justice so close to the November presidential election has angered Democrats. The party's presidential nominee Joe Biden described Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation as rushed and unprecedented. Biden added that it should be a stark reminder to every American that your vote matters. His running mate Kamala Harris said Justice Barrett's confirmation was a disgrace not only because of what she will do, but when she gets on the bench, but because of the entire process. Democrats have argued for weeks that it should be up to the winner of the November 3 election to select the nominee for the Supreme Court vacancy. They fear Judge Barrett's confirmation to the lifelong post will favor Republicans in politically sensitive cases that reach America's top court. Australia's health authorities reassured the public about Australian vaccines as 59 people died in South Korea after getting the flu shots. Joining us tonight is one of our correspondents in Australia, Marvy Delfin, to give us the details why live. Marvy?
Kath, after the administration of Australian vaccine Vaxigrip Tetra and Korean-made SkyCell Flu Quadrivalent, Australia's Therapeutic Goods Administration, or TGA, has responded to public health concerns after 59 people died in South Korea. Despite the surge of public anxiety over the safety of flu vaccines after the incident, Australia and South Korea urged citizens to still get vaccinated against influenza in an effort to help reduce the chances of an outbreak that coincides with the battle against COVID-19. Although no direct association has been confirmed between the deaths and the vaccines, Singapore has temporarily halted the use of the two vaccine brands as a precaution. Singapore's Health Sciences Authority, or HSA, is currently working in cooperation with South Korea to investigate the cause and correlation of the deaths and the flu vaccines. While a TGA spokesperson said in a statement, Vaxigrip Tetra is approved for use in Australia and was funded under the National Immunization Program during the 2020 influenza season for patients aged 6 months and over. The spokesman added that the TGA has not received any adverse event reports with an outcome of death linked to vaccination with Vaxigrip Tetra in Australia. Vaxigrip Tetra is sponsored by French multinational giant Sanofi, and SkyCell-Flu Quadrivalent is manufactured by South Korea's SK Bioscience. Kath, this year we have seen countries worldwide campaigning more aggressively to carry out flu vaccinations as one way to potentially mitigate the continuing effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Health authorities report that Australia was lucky to have a mild flu season this year due to an unprecedented number of people getting the flu jab. They said the low number of flu cases has helped the healthcare system continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Kath?
Marvy, what is the trend of the flu season like there down under, and how does it fare compared with that in other nations?
Kath, here in Australia, there were slightly more than 21,000 cases of laboratory-confirmed influenza this year, as of October 18, according to Department of Health data. Last year, in the same time period, there were more than 247,000. And so experts say that the United States needs to follow Australia's example on vaccinations, as well as other safety procedures like the consistent wearing of face masks, especially when the U.S. enters its winter season this December. Each flu season in the U.S., the Centers for Disease Control, or CDC, estimates that anywhere from 140,000 to 810,000 people are hospitalized for influenza, and up to 61,000 people die from the disease. Without a doubt, those rates would be considerably higher without the vaccines. Kath?
All right, thank you, Marvy, reporting live from Australia. And those are the reasons behind the news here in Thailand and in other parts of the globe. Back to you, Diego.
Thank you, Kath Dumaraos, reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand.
The rising number of electric scooter-related injuries is alarming for U.S. researchers. Jovic Bermas tells us why.
Since the introduction of e-scooter rideshare programs in 2017, as part of the micromobility revolution, urban cities have seen a significant rise in the number of injuries, with many of them related to head and neck injuries. This is according to the retrospective study conducted by Henry Ford Health System in the United States, presented at the annual meeting of the American Academy of Otolaryngology. From January 2009 to December 2019, more than 100,000 estimated e-scooter injuries were reported by the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission. Henry Ford researchers said the incidence of injuries remained relatively constant until 2017. However, they significantly increased 3.5 times when e-scooter rideshare program was introduced. 25,562, or nearly 28% of the 92,353 who visited the emergency departments, suffered head and neck injuries, while 10% required hospitalization. Common reported e-scooter injuries such as concussions, fractures, contusions, abrasions, lacerations, and internal organ injuries occurred predominantly among aged 18 to 44-year-olds. Dr. Kathleen Yoremchuk, the study's lead author and chair of the Department of Otolaryngology, Head and Neck Surgery, said the numbers of injuries they have seen should be a wake-up call about the safety risks of riding these modes of transportation, as some riders riders are not wearing helmets, 2 or 3 riders on one e-scooter recklessly weaving in and out of traffic. Dr. Samantha Tam, the study's co-author and an otolaryngologist at Henry Ford Health System, recommends that people who use e-scooters wear a helmet and apply the same approach as when driving. Apart from wearing a helmet, safety experts also suggest when riding an e-scooter to wear knee and elbow pads, wear appropriate clothing, understand the specific features and capabilities of the e-scooter, and observe traffic laws. Jovic Bermas, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And those are the reasons behind the news, October 27, 2020. I am Horilyn Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. Sitting in for William Theo, I am Stephanie C. reporting live from Hong Kong.
Because we need to know. We will always ask why. I'm Angelo Castro III. We serve the people. We give glory to God.